I'm extremely happy to be able to finally show you the finished George Cleverley. It's 1969 Bespoke George Cleverley. Those of you that have watched the videos, the series of videos over the last month or so, will have seen the progress. I'm absolutely thrilled with the outcome, to be honest with you. You know, it's they were in the most disastrous shape to begin with. Let's just remind ourselves of roughly how they originally looked. Now, to be fair, if we look at the close-up, you can see it's extremely ragged skin, all rough. To be fair, this doesn't give a full sense of how bad they really were. This shoe's had a huge amount of work. A lot of the stitching had failed, so that's all been redone. The skins had split and torn down here. That's all been repaired. It had happened the same there. The elastics were massively stretched. There was an enormous amount of stretching on the vamps and a huge amount down here. You could pinch about an inch and there. So they were just floppy. They were covered in thick polish, big, thick, flaky layers. It was like nail varnish. It was so thick. They were an absolute disaster. And this looks horrendous, but it's probably only half as bad as what we started out with. And to be able to, you know, come back and achieve something like this, I'm thrilled. But be under no illusions. It's been a colossal, truly monumental amount of work. They've got this unique George Cleverley, that I don't know what that's called, but the way the sort of shoe bulges out here, that's very classically and unmistakably George Cleverley, and coming down into these sort of wonderful sort of chiseled toes. It's so classically Cleverley, it couldn't be anything else. And because they were made by George Cleverley, and they've still got the original soles, welting and heels, that ridiculous piece of rubber there, that will be taken off, and I'll put on a proper leather heel. And it's the heel, if we look very carefully, the bottom of the heel flares out slightly. It's supposed to be more angled, more sort of chiseled. It's not supposed to flare like that. It's supposed to be much more delicate, and I'll address that. It does have a rubber toepy. They've been fitted from new, and that's probably been replaced 10 times in the life of these shoes over the 50-year period. I'm not a fan of them. I prefer the original leather, but the original leather is below that toepy. Had they not been fitted, this shoe would have never survived. It would have torn through the original sole quite quickly. The original soles have been replaced many times, and given the condition that the original tops were, they would have been scrap. I'd have never considered restoring them, but because they've got all the original sort of hand-lasted, hand-stitched welting, I decided to go for it. And they are an original shoe. Made by George Cleverley. I believe the original owner, the person that commissioned these shoes, was Prince Rupert Lowenstein. Upon his death about 4 or 5 years ago, I acquired quite a lot of his bespoke George Cleverley collection. And Lowenstein was the finance manager for the Rolling Stones from the mid-60s up until certainly the late 90s, I think. It was a long time, and I believe he was introduced to George as a shoemaker by Charlie Watts, the drummer, who's a big Cleverley fan himself. But this mirror polish, they're quite difficult to achieve. I've got a extremely soft cloth here. You can't really, when you've got a mirror type reflection, you can't be touching it with your fingers. It leaves fingerprints behind. So it's purely circular motions when you're finishing the polish. And the previous video I made about a week ago now, it shows you how to apply the polish to try and achieve a mirror finish. If you're interested, do watch that one. I'm not going to sort of go over it here. I just wanted to sort of show you the final finishing. And I'll be honest with you, I did say, I think I said on the end of the last video, I was going to sort of represent this shoe matte with lots of dry built-up polish, layer upon layer, and I would buff it on camera. I realised that the buffing takes so long. It's not just a simple rub down like I'm doing here. It takes at least an hour when you've got maybe 20 coats built up on the toe caps, and then to sort of give it the final buff like I'm doing here. Try to keep my fingertips away from the skin as much as possible, because the oil from your fingertips, it will spoil the finish. But just to show you what can be achieved, I am thrilled with the result. There's a slight flat spot just here. It's actually in the toe cap itself. You can it just spoils the finish slightly. To be honest, I didn't know that was there until I came to until I came to sort of the final finishing, and it just appears to have a very small flat spot, but we're splitting hairs. Considering, you know, the original condition, I don't think we've done bad here. It just shows you what can be achieved. This one's still got a long way to go. If you've not seen the previous videos, do have a look. And the biggest issue now on trying to get this shoe finished is removing this surface. No amount of moisturising the skins and polishing is going to achieve even a fraction of this kind of finish. The surface of this skin, if I scratch it, you can hear it. It's crunchy. It's just dead. It's completely dead. But it's only a few microns on the surface that's dead. So I will sort of sand that away with varying grades. It'll take 15 or 20 hours, carefully avoiding the stitching, completely strip that, and it'll be fresh, complete fresh skin underneath. Then I'll re-dye it and moisturise it and eventually polish it. But we're probably looking at 30 hours to finish this shoe to this sort of standard. But you know, I am extremely pleased with the outcome, and classic George Cleverley. This is and this shape, this type of shoe is an extremely, it's very traditional George Cleverley styling. A lot of makers, bespoke makers, do their own version of this sort of elastic sided loafer. And there aren't many ready-to-wear shoes that come in this style. They're largely bespoke. But we'll stop here. I just wanted to let you see, you know, where we've arrived at. I probably won't film the process of finishing these. It's exactly the same. I'm going to move on with the filming and do a new series. I haven't decided what is going to be the next project to film and demonstrate to you. I've got a huge amount. I've probably got 25, 30 pairs of extremely special shoes, very similar quality to these, but in similar conditions that need a huge amount of work. So we'll come back to it, and there'll be a new series. So I'm sure this is going to be the last you'll see in the series of this particular 1969 Bespoke George Cleverley. And thank you for watching the series, and I do hope that you've picked some up. Actually, I said I was going to finish here. There's something else I needed to just quickly show you. I've got a bag full of old cloth here. This is old bed sheet, probably 30 years old, and this is a piece of it here. It's close. These have been boil washed, and there's some staining, but it's very difficult to try and achieve a mirror finish with a piece of hard cloth. This is extraordinarily soft. It's close to being rotten. I don't know how many dozens or hundreds of times it's been washed, boil washed, tumble dried, and it's on the edge of being rotten, but it's exquisitely soft. It's 100% cotton. Anything slightly less worn out, let's say, it leaves tiny little scratches in the surface here. This one here, it's very soft, and it came from a shirt, and my wife has sort of edged it for me, and it's soft enough. It's very soft. It's soft enough to give a very, very nice shine, but just not quite soft enough to give the mirror gloss that I've tried to achieve. So yeah, if I just hold this up to the camera, we might be able to see it's probably even got holes in it, because it's look at that. It's almost completely rotten, but this is the level of cloth you would need to achieve a military sort of glossy finish. Yeah, almost totally rotten. So I sort of guard these rather jealously, even though it's a piece of rotten cloth. I would never apply such a fantastically soft cloth. I would never apply the polishes with that. I've got other pieces. You can see these are stained. They've been boil washed. They're soft, but not as soft. They're fine for applying the polishers. And I've even tried silk. I've got a lot of silk socks that wear through on the toes very quickly. Easy to put the heels through on the long silk sock. And you would think silk's very, very soft and that would be perfect. But even silk is simply too scratchy. It leaves thousands and thousands of little tiny scratches. So ideally, a big old rotten bed sheet with holes in it. If it looks like that before it gets all washed, all the better. But it has to be 100% cotton. You can't try it with polycotton, the cheaper mixers. It has to be 100%. So if you find a big old bed sheet, it'll be quite valuable to you as a polisher. So we're definitely going to stop here. This will be the last you'll see in this series on these Bespoke George Cleverley. Thank you for watching.